Dad, what's the future gonna look like?
Welcome to the UP.Summit, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I dig your threads.
Likewise. I think I could use one button undone.
Well, we'll leave it where it is for now. So before we get into all this, tell us about your experience here so far.
It's been amazing. I brought my family out. I wonder if any of them are here right now. Brought my 3 boys. They got to see all the stuff happening. The first day with the air show. Yeah, it's been amazing. And this is like very inspirational. We talked about this a little bit before, but like this event and the demonstrations and all this stuff, this embodies the thing that inspires us to want to change the world in a way that's very cool, in a way that leaves our kids wanting to do these kinds of things too. So super inspirational.
So cool to meet your kids and watch them taking pictures with Optimus and running around. And it's great to see this thread of kind of going full circle. So let's start before we get into the new crazy stuff you're doing, but let's go what you did before.
Old crazy.
Yeah. All right. So you and your partner decided, hey, we want to take on the entire finance world and effectively democratize the access to the public markets in a way that nobody had ever really done before. Take us on that journey to starting Robinhood to where it is today.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild to think that it's been over a decade. That in many ways culminated in this moment, but continues. We had this idea over a decade ago now that if young people weren't a part of our financial system, sort of like on the backdrop of things like Occupy, if we didn't have the next generation of people being a part of our capital system, that just wasn't a world that we wanted to live in. And we had this idea that if we could make investing accessible, if we could reduce the costs around it, and if we could do it on mobile, which at the time was this emerging platform, that those would be the catalysts that would get a new generation of people to start taking their money seriously. Because we saw this sort of conventional wisdom, almost that knowing what's going on with your money, being actively involved in thinking about your money was just not cool. It wasn't in vogue. This is 10, 15 years ago. And when we look at it today, I mean, you talk to young people, it's something that's absolutely top of mind. And that's the kind of change that we want to have in the world, right? We have millions of people that use the product, that have been introduced to the capital markets, and are making that lifelong journey of investing.
What's the current AUM of Robinhood right now, roughly?
I wish I knew that off the top of my head. I don't.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a big number. But you think about a heavily regulated industry, incredibly entrenched by the big banks. Like, you couldn't have had more headwinds coming at you when you guys started this. Talk about like that journey of like figuring out how to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it took 2 college friends with long, scraggly hair that had really no business being in finance that turned the whole thing on its head, right? And from every part of it, right? From building the company when it was 2 of us and 10 engineers and a couple of compliance people, through all the ups and downs and going public, GameStop saga. I mean, it was incredibly challenging, but I think one thing I told myself kind of in those early days was if I ever hit it big at this finance thing, that I wanted to someday build a space company, because I'd actually grown up around the space industry my whole life. And in many ways, it's kind of the working through all the complexities from a regulatory perspective, as well as standing up this new technology that kind of was the inspiration or sort of confidence inspiring you to do the next thing.
There's another guy that started off in finance and went to space, Elon,
yeah,
with PayPal, and then
I think he also did a degree in physics at Stanford.
There's a thread here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so paving the pathway. And speaking of finance and space, I don't know if Jared Isaacman is in the room or not, but did you guys like those F5s that flew in the air show yesterday? So big round of applause to Jared. Who started Shift 4, first commander of the first civilian commanded SpaceX mission, and then was the first person to do civilian spacewalk. And he's an American hero, and we're really lucky to have him part of the up community.
And a good dude.
He's an awesome dude. He's so fun. Okay, let's go back in time.
Heyo. Who's that?
You've changed a bit.
A little bit, yeah. I grew my hair out.
Yeah, you sure did. You grew your hair out, and you shed some LBs. But let's talk about that part.
Yeah, I mean, this was me. I think I was a sophomore in high school. I really loved physics. I wanted to study physics. I grew up, that's my dad. Our family moved to the U.S. from India because my dad had always wanted to pursue a degree in physics and spent 10 years applying year in, year out, not getting in. And I think he had kind of given up on it because he said he was going to devote his whole life to science, wasn't going to get married, wasn't going to have kids. He says he added, his name's Praful, he added the Kumar at the end to designate to the world he was a bachelor. He was going to devote himself to science. And then gets married to my mom. My mom's pregnant with me, and then he gets into University of Huntsville, Alabama to study physics in the U.S. And so my mom is pregnant when she gets on the plane, doesn't speak any English when she comes to the U.S., and that's kind of been my inspiration through most of my childhood. So later on, he would go on to have some health problems. He's still alive and well today, and went on to get a job as a research scientist, as a contractor working with NASA at Langley Air Force Base. So I remember growing up with my dad having his office next to those big wind tunnels at Langley Air Force Base and really wanting to study physics. And I remember my dad was very adamant. He's like, look, I'm not going to tell you that you should study physics. If you want to do this, you kind of have to figure it out yourself. And I think that was very, very well timed because it definitely pushed me to want to study physics. So went on to study physics and math at Stanford. My dad has been a huge inspiration through all of this. And I told myself, I mentioned this a little while ago, that if I ever hit it big at this finance thing, I wanted to go back to where my real passion was, which was in the space industry. One other thing to add to this, growing up around Langley Air Force Base and seeing kind of the machinery that makes aerospace and the space industry, it did leave me with a sense of frustration in some ways because it felt like the space race had been fought and won before I was born. And it kind of felt like we all lost because in the 90s, the space industry was it's not where it is today, right? We weren't launching tons of new things all the time, and it kind of felt like almost a historical artifact, which actually gets to a lot of the motivation for what we're doing with Aetherflux, which is looking to build commercial applications in space with this idea that, and this is, I think, the thesis, one of the theses that's, kind of rhymes with the thesis of Robinhood, is that the importance of capitalism, and that if you can bring a capitalist set of incentives, ideas to an industry that kind of feels stuck before, that's how you put a little WD-40 in the gears and get it to start spinning.
All right, well, let's tell people what Aetherflux is all about. We got a video here, and this is crazy. So let's hear about it.
Yeah. So who here has heard of the idea of space solar power? Show of hands. All right. Old idea, never happened. And frustrating that it's never happened because I think this is the category of truly space-age things that I want to see in the world. So the idea was a new approach to an old idea, and in particular, this old idea of space solar power calls for beaming microwaves and large aperture spacecraft as a way of transmitting power from space to Earth. So you collect power in orbit where the power density is higher, and if you put it in the right orbits, you can have continuous or near continuous illumination. But again, never happened. And our approach is to do it a little differently. Rather than building one monolithic spacecraft, as the old recipe called for, we're actually taking an idea that's much closer to what we see with Starlink. So instead, we have a constellation of satellites that collect power in orbit using traditional solar panels and use IR lasers to actually beam the power down to the ground. And the idea is that you can collect power with these small modular receivers that we know that the US military has a lot of interest in as a resilient layer to the energy grid, especially in the austere locations, contested environments where the sort of bread and butter of getting power out to those locations is diesel generators and diesel fuel, right? So instead you have a constellation in orbit that you can sort of plug into and get power nearly anywhere in the world.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and we're targeting actually doing a demonstration of this next year.
Wow.
So we will be beaming lasers from space next year.
Do you already have a spot on a rocket to go up?
We're doing a lot of work with SpaceX. We're on the rideshare program, and so yeah, off to the races. A lot of stuff has to go right for that to happen, but we're working pretty industriously toward it.
That's incredible. What's it been like to transition from that finance world to actually going into what it feels like you're actually meant to do? This feels like that's just the foundation for effectively creating abundance for energy, but using this weird combination of space and Earth and when we were doing the attendee book, I thought I first put you in the space section. I'm like, no, he's in the new energy section, which is just really not obvious and super cool.
You know what you should have done?
What's that?
Just put me in both.
Yes, I will do that. do that next time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, in many ways, it's kind of my happy place building companies. I am an entrepreneur. That's the thing I love to do. Love to go from an idea that people don't think is really possible to making it reality, right? And so this is a pretty new set of challenges, to be totally honest. I would say, about 2 years ago, I was pretty much a finance bro. I was not that knowledgeable about the aerospace industry. But to go from that to trying to get a satellite in space next year, really, really fast learning. It's fun building hardware. I think that's one of the things that, if you're building a company, you have to really freaking love it. You have to really love what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And the idea of building physical hardware after a decade and a half of digital products, that's where my passion is, that's where my heart is.
So let's talk about safety.
Yep.
You're going to be beaming a lot of energy through space, through the atmosphere, onto the ground. What happens if I fly my airplane through that?
So first things first, we're going to work with regulators, so FAA and FCC. We have applications in with them right now. And the first demonstration we're actually going to do over controlled airspace. So think places like White Sands, New Mexico, where we'll have a test bed to do this where we can kind of simplify the set of constraints. The idea is in the future, we'll have redundancy in our safety system that takes into consideration safety for planes, animals, wildlife, et cetera, et cetera. And the basic thought is that you actually disambiguate the airspace. So you know where there's planes, aircraft, other things in the night sky. And so you disambiguate the places that you want to transmit power. And beyond that, from a technology perspective, we're working on a novel cutoff mechanism that should that first line of safety, for some reason not behave as it's supposed to, the system is designed, if something enters the beam, to cut off. And to actually use the speed of light to minimize the cutoff time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've got some really, really smart folks in the room. You got a lot of capital in the room. You got entrepreneurs in the room. How can these people help you?
Well, first things first, I'm learning that space is quite expensive. And that's a big part of it. I mean, I think there's going to be the journey that our company is on. We've raised a healthy amount of private capital already. I've put in my own money into getting this thing started. We will need more capital as we scale the company over time. I think also there's a lot of people here that we're looking to learn from, looking to partner with on the DOW side. And very excited to actually be a part of this community first and foremost, right? These are very cool group of people, very inspiring.
I look forward to the next UP.Summit, hearing about your launch and your successful beaming of space energy light to Earth, man, my friend.
Yeah.
Awesome. Big round of applause for Baiju.
The future is gonna be awesome.